Hello, my name is Shane in Sweden, and in this series of video presentations, we're going to look at an e-commerce topic, and that is how you can automate administrative tasks in Squarespace using Selenium and C#.
Now, in part one of the video series, we looked at adding a digital product to our shop.
And in part two of the video series, we looked at how we could automate the login process, or nearly automate the login process. So we could automatically fill in the username and the password, click on the login button. Then we had a small manual bit where we add our two-factor authentication code and press that button. And then the process again automatically took us to our website and took us to the inventory page. Now in part one, we also identified a number of attributes that were associated with each digital product that we could possibly, as part of our automation process, load from some sort of repository. And we can see the variables listed here. So we obviously need some method of storing the information, some sort of repository, and some method of loading the information from that repository so that we can use it when we're running our automated digital loading process. And in this part of the video, we're going to just be looking at that digital product attribute repository and loading it and testing it. So if you want to focus on Squarespace automation, feel free to jump to the next part. But if you're interested in data structures and automation and testing, then hang with us. And let's go into Visual Studio.
Okay, so here we are in Visual Studio 2019, and we're going to create a new project. And we are initially going to create a class library for .NET Core. And the class library will be called Squarespace Auto. And we'll just create that. And as usual with my projects where we're working from tests as the development driver, we're going to add a test project. And this will be called Squarespace Auto Test. And this will of course have a reference to the main project. Okay, so let's create inside our auto class here. We can call this digital product. And it's going to have a title. And a description. And we wanted it to have a list of tags. And a list of categories. And then we needed 3 different paths to our image files. So we had a path to the main image, the main product image file. And then we had the watermark image. And then we had the thumbnail image. And then we also had the price. And we had the sale price. Okay, so that's the fields we used, the fields we filled in when we were creating our digital product. And we need to have a method for reading these from a file. So this can be our first test. Okay, so we created an Excel spreadsheet here which contains the important variables for our products, and here we can have, for example, our 1500 or 1000 products. And so we've got the title, the description, the tags and categories, where we find the main product image that we're going to download, where we're going to find the watermark version of that, the thumbnail, and of course we've set the price and the sale price. And so we can use these then to feed into our automation process when we're loading a new digital product. Okay, now that we have some test data, we can create our first unit test. And we're going to check that we can read in our test data properly. This should be digital product tests. And here's our first digital product test. Digital product. Read product info. And we want a successful result. So we're going to use the AAA pattern. And we're going to create a list of digital products. And we're going to fetch that list using some sort of repository, which should be in the Squarespace auto. Maybe it should be in something called data, digital product repository. We should probably create that first. And we're going to send that the file name, which is our test data that we looked at in Excel. And then under Act, we're going to read the product list from that. And here we're going to assert that we have read 3 products. Okay, we just need to add some references here. And here we need to create a new folder, which may become an assembly in the long term. So we'll call data. And in that folder, we need to create a new class, which would be a digital product repository. And we might want to add an interface, which should be iDigital product. And this has a property. Okay, and then our digital product repository will, of course. Now, the reason we're doing this, even though maybe it seems a bit much now, let's just implement that interface, is that we're building this administration tools for the future, and at some point it's quite probable that we want to change out our simple Excel ARC file that we have here, our test data, for something more sophisticated like a database, and so we want to keep that flexibility. Now if we look at our test, we still can't compile our test because we can see that we've got an error here where we're missing a constructor that takes 1 argument. So if we go to our digital product repository and we create a constructor, and we can send in the product data file path, and that's working, and we're missing something here, a T on our count. And we should be using system linq. Okay, so we can compile our test, but of course if we run it, we should get an exception, because the product list will not be equal to 3. Right, and we get a not implemented exception. So let's stop this and change things that our test works. So let's read in all the data, all the rows from our file. And to do this, we need to add a reference to system IO. That should be read all lines, not read all text. And we'll convert that to list. Add a reference to linq. So now we're reading in our rows of data. But remember, the first row is just the headers. And here we actually convert our strings to products. Okay, and here we just need to convert each of these line descriptions into a digital product class. As I said before, we had our Excel and we have saved our information as a comma separated file, and under Swedish cultural norms, comma separated files are saved where the semicolon is used rather than the comma, which is handy for us because it means that all these commas in our description list, category list and tag list, they're separate from what we use to separate our columns. So we need to split our line on semicolon and convert it to a digital product. Okay, and now we can use our column description to create our digital product. Now the first column will be the title. The description will be the next column. Tags is the third column. Categories is the fourth column. The main image is the next column. The watermark image is the next column. And the thumbnail is the next column. Finally, we have the price. And the sale price. These are floats, and this is an array. So let's do this. Let's split this also on the comma. And the same here for the categories. And this will be convert. Let's try convert to decimal. And the same here. It's not a very elegant way of doing this. Let's just try it as a float.parse, since we are actually reading a string. Okay, that creates a new product from the row, and then we need to add that to the products list. Okay, so if we go to our test and we run that, and we're getting an error. And if we look at the line that we're interpreting, of course we haven't hopped over the first row, the header column, which we should do. So we should have a skip one there. So we hop over the first row, and let's run our test again. And now we have our 3 digital products. Okay, so that looks good.
Okay, so what have we accomplished in this part? We've created a repository, so we can just as one task, enter all the descriptive information we need for our full list of digital products. We can have it in one repository and one file, and then our automation process can use that repository to digitally and automatically load up digital products to Squarespace without intervention from us. But I think that's enough of working with repositories, and I think it's time for us to get back to Squarespace automation and the actual main task, which is loading a digital product. And that's what we'll be looking at in the very next part of the video series. So I hope I'll see you there.